Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Luria with TMC for Seniors, and we are in the middle of Heart Month. And today I have Mary Mellady here with me for our TMC Director of Connected Health and Wellness. She is going to be talking about the heart of the matter. So, welcome, Mary.
Good morning, Maya. All right. Good morning. So we are going to talk about the heart of the matter since it is Heart Health Month. All right. So heart health is more than just eating right and exercising. So we're going to talk a little bit about everything today. So first off, what does it mean to be healthy? And so I pulled a couple things off of the internet, and also a couple of these are quotes from classes that we've given in the past. Most people think of healthy as being free of disease. Also might mean promoting good health. And I think one gentleman told me he feels strength and full of vigor. So it's important for each of us to know what it means to be healthy. For me, to be healthy means I can do what I want, when I want, and nobody can tell me otherwise. So that might be something completely different for you. So understanding what health is for you will help you better define your own personal health goals and help you get to a healthier heart. When we talk about the definition of health from the perspective of the World Health Organization, they define health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not just the mere absence of disease or infirmity. And there is a typo in there, so I apologize. So when we in our wellness department talk about well-being and health, we look at a pyramid, and we look at it from the concept of there's physical health on one side and emotional well-being on the other side, and then spiritual well-being on the bottom. So that physical health or physical well-being incorporates, are you seeing your doctor? Are your lab values all good and normal, or are you working towards them? Are you eating well? Are you eating a good, healthy, balanced diet? Are you being active? And that doesn't have to be in the typical exercise form. It just could be being active. So that's what we refer to on the physical side. Under emotional well-being, we talk about stress management. We know that stress can be healthy in certain situations, but too much stress can impact our health. It can lead or impact chronic disease negatively. And so how are we dealing with stress, and are we dealing with it in a healthy way? And do we have social support? For a lot of us, we need that social connection to really make progress towards our health goals and to stay healthy. We need somebody to help be our cheerleaders. We need people to help give us proper information. So that social support is very important to our emotional well-being. And that spiritual well-being, not necessarily referring to religion, but our own personal spirit. And maybe that spirit is influenced by religion, but that's your choice. We refer to it more as our sense of purpose. Why do we get up every day? Why do we do what we do? Why do we make the choices that we make each day? That's our purpose. That's our why. And our values. They need to be meshed. What we do on a daily basis, our daily habits, need to intersect with our values. Otherwise, there's going to be a disconnect, and it's going to impact our emotional well-being on that side. And that in turn impacts our physical well-being. If we are really super stressed and we don't have a heart of peace, then the chances of us saying we're going to choose a healthy diet over comfort foods, or go out and be active over sitting on the couch, is very low. So that what is happening in our brains, in our hearts, very much impacts our overall health. So being healthy and eating healthy and living a healthy life, there's the what, there's the how, and then there's the why. So to explain a couple of these pictures, That's me in a tree. I love to climb trees, and I find it especially lovely when it's really high up off the ground. So that's in the Grand Canyon. But so for me, my why is that I can to be healthy, go do what I want to do when I want to do it. So I love to be in the Grand Canyon hiking, and I love to be with my family. So that's my why. The what is that I'm going to choose healthy foods, and I'm going to move a lot and be active. And the how is through a meal plan, which might also incorporate an exercise training plan. So those three things need to wrap together in order for us to be truly heart healthy and to have that emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. So we need to know the what, the how, and the why. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about. So when you look up cardiovascular health, they often talk about the simple seven. And what they're referring to is in this corner here, we have blood glucose. So blood glucose, if it is not in a target range, if we are not working towards controlling that, if we have diabetes and our hemoglobin A1C is higher than that 7, then we need to work towards how we are going to bring that down. We are looking at our HDL, cholesterol levels. So that's this one, the purple. What is your LDL levels? What are your HDL levels? What are your triglycerides? Those all impact our heart health. And we can influence those by what we eat and how active we are. What's our blood pressure? And again, that's impacted by our diet and by our activity levels in many cases. We had a talk a couple months ago that we talked about high intensity interval training. And we talked that there's some research that sometimes that kind of exercise can be much more effective for controlling our blood pressure. So are we doing the right kind of activity? The one down here at the bottom, do we smoke? This is something that's controllable. So all of these 7 factors are all the controllable factors in our cardiovascular health. Blue, are we being active? Recommendation is that 150 minutes every week for adults. And so it's 30 minutes minimally most days of the week. What's our weight look like? Are we at a healthy weight? And that's going to be different for everybody. It's not just the number on the scale, but it's also our body composition. How much weight are we carrying around our waist? And how does that relate to our numbers over across here? So it's not always just a direct, here's your ideal body weight. And then up here at the top is our diet. What are we doing? Are we eating a lot of vegetables and fruits and good sources of protein? So that's the simple 7 that you'll see a lot that they're kind of using a little bit more in cardiovascular education. So these are the what? These are the factors we control. Like I just talked about nutrition, our heart health. We want to be eating half our plates of fruits and vegetables. And when we eat grains, we want them to be whole grains. So thinking about whole wheats, brown rice, the whole grain pastas, stay away from that processed, the white kinds of carbs and grains. Unfortunately, carbohydrates get such a bad rep because there's so much processed carbs out there that aren't good for us. But the whole grains, we do need those. They're a good source of B vitamins. The carbohydrates help to start that cycle of using energy and using the fat and protein in our body. So we need those whole grains. We need lean sources of protein and low-fat dairy. I'm seeing still this trend of whole-fat dairy, and there still is no good research out there saying that that's better for us. That we still know that saturated fat, which comes from whole-fat dairy products, has a negative impact on our LDL cholesterol. We also want to and need to limit our sugar, our salt, and our solid fats, those saturated fats. So there's the ones that are solid at room temperature. And even if we don't have diabetes, we do need to still watch how much sugar are we eating. Alcohol in moderation and water in abundance. So we need to drink more of that water and probably keep that alcohol in moderation. And caffeine, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to put on here about caffeine. And there is some research that says that caffeine has a positive effect on our heart health. And then there's some out there that says that it is not completely conclusive. And so I think that's going to be an individual call on the caffeine for you. But I would recommend everything in moderation. So probably you want to limit your coffee if you're drinking more than probably 2 cups per day. With activity, we need to focus on both cardiovascular, so those types of activity that get our heart up and moving and pumping. We want to do activities that help us to increase that heart rate to a moderate to intense level, so that we can talk during our activity, but we shouldn't be able to sing. So if your cardiovascular activity is to go walk and you're talking with your friends the whole time and not out of breath, then you need to step it up and you need to be walking faster or pick a hill or start climbing stairs. So think about cardiovascular activity that gets your heart rate going. We want to do strength activities at least twice a week. And that's anything that provides some sort of resistance to your muscles. And we want to work all of our muscle groups, our arms and our legs. And that can be using weights, but it can also be using resistance bands. It can be even using things around your house. Cans can be used to lift up. It can just be using your own body. You can sit and stand. I used this in another presentation. My favorite exercise is just to sit on a chair and stand up. Sit and stand, sit and stand, and just do that repeatedly. That's a strength workout, and it gets your heart rate going. And finally, we want to also incorporate some flexibility, some stretching, and some balance activities, because that is very important. As we age, we become much less flexible, and we start to have issues with our balance. Sleep, so important. Every year we learn more about the importance of sleep and how it impacts our health. Recommendation for adults is 7 to 9 hours every night. And that is a general recommendation. I realize there are some people out there that don't need that much sleep. And I also realize that as we age, it becomes a lot more difficult to get sleep. So one of the number one recommendations that our sleep experts here at TMC tell us is that to be on a consistent sleep cycle, which is go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. And that should help you fall asleep more easily and stay asleep. And additionally, you want to stop with all the electronics and eating probably about 90 minutes before you plan to go to bed, because both of those things prevent us from falling asleep. So that quality of sleep can also be impacted by your environment. So is your room cool? Is it sometimes aromatherapy can help? Is it dark enough? Some studies or research says that too much clutter in your room might impact your sleep. So thinking through with relation to your quality of sleep, what's happening in your bedroom. And then our emotional health. What are we doing around our stress management? Do we have a plan? Are we using healthy tools to manage our stress? And are we being mindful? Are we being in the moment? Are we being here with and present with the people around us? Do we have a good support network? We talked about that earlier. And are we practicing gratitude and joy? A lot of research around Heart Health connects being happy and joyful with some good positive effects on our blood pressure and our ability to manage stress. So all of those things, very important part of our what we control. The how is around relying on valid sources of information. So that was one of the pieces of that support network. Sometimes your support network comes in the form of professionals, whether that's your physician or your local dietitian, or your exercise physiologist if you're going to cardiac rehab, to provide you with good and valid sources of information. Unfortunately, we have access to so much information right at the tip of our fingers on our phone, and we can Google anything, but sometimes those Google results aren't always legitimate. And so we need to make sure. So when in doubt, check with your doctor. Okay. Have a goal and make it personal. Last month, we talked about resolution solution, or maybe, sorry, that was in December, about how we were going to effectively achieve our goals. And one of the things was by making it personal. Have a health goal that's important to you and know why it's important to you, and make it something that isn't transient, meaning you want to lose weight. Why is that healthy for you? And it can't just because somebody told me, or because I have a high school reunion coming up, or we're going on vacation, because that's very transient. Why is it really important to you? And think through things. If you're at a healthier weight, are you able to do more of what you want to do? Does it get you closer to what healthy means to you? Does your health goal get you closer to that definition, your personal definition of being healthy? Have a plan, and then have a backup plan. I also talked in the past about being intentional. Having a plan helps us be intentional. So one of those first pictures was a meal plan. So as a dietitian, I talk with clients a lot about meal planning. If you want to start to eat healthy, it's so helpful to make a plan of what you're going to eat every day. You can't just fly by the seat of your pants unless you are skilled and have some plans in place that you're used to, and you're kind of in a routine and you have a habit around eating healthy. Otherwise, you need some plans. You can't decide you're just going to go run a marathon and just wing it. You need to have a training plan. So think about that with all of your health goals. What are your plans? How are you going to achieve this? If it's reducing one of your numbers, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, what is your plan? How are you going to do that? And make small, detailed steps in your plan. Because we also know in order to make a change and to improve our health, we need to make just small changes. We can't think big. We got to think small. And that makes it more realistic and more possible for us to progress and be consistent. Be open to new possibilities. So whether that's around the types of food you eat, the activities you do, or your plan, or who might be helping you, be open. Recruit friends and family to be your support. We know that it is always easier to make changes to your health when you have somebody doing it with you. If you're in it by yourself, then there's nobody to commiserate with when you've really overdone it. And there's nobody to say, it's okay, we can do this tomorrow. And there's nobody to call to say, hey, I really want to stop and get that donut, to talk you off the ledge. So have a friend, have somebody in your family that's going to be there. And then make your health a priority. You have to decide that this is really important to you, because life is going to happen. It's going to get in the way. And oftentimes we put our health in the back burner, and we need to decide, and to the last point, be intentional every single day that our health is a priority. All right. So as I started off, many people know what they're doing that they shouldn't be doing, and many people know what they're doing that they need to do more of. So it's not uncommon to know and then not be able to get to that actually doing. And here's why. It's called this no-do gap. So it's this gap in knowing what we should do and actually making change happen that explains why we know what we do what we know we shouldn't be doing. We don't do what we know we need to be doing. Why we don't maintain changes after a few months, and why we always feel like there's just never enough time. It's just we haven't actually figured out how to get to that making the change. So you're not alone. So that's the good news. So we have to figure out how we're going to bridge that gap between the knowing and the doing. And that's all in finding your personal why. So that was part of that initial, the what, the how, and the why. The why is probably the most important piece we're finding in order for us to continue our journey towards being healthy and making it a daily habit. So the why is at the heart of our matter. So the why and perspective. Our why is often influenced by our perspective. So what we tell ourselves about our health can either be motivating or debilitating. So by that I mean, if you believe you can make change, then that makes it a little bit easier. If you start telling yourself and your perspective of your health is that it's never going to get any better, I've tried, I can't make any changes, it's never going to happen, then that can be debilitating. And that right there, by telling yourself that, can be the end to your start. And are you a victim to your health, or are you in control of it? Is your health making you somebody that you're not happy being? And what about it can you change? You have to really think about that. Well, I can't travel as much because I got these knee issues. Okay. What of that can you control? Well, my doctor told me it might get better if I lost some weight. Oh, well, there you can control that. It's not your knee's fault. You have some things you can control that maybe then you could get back to traveling. And that it's different for everybody. That was just a random example. But don't let your health make you a victim. Okay. Do you compare your health to what it was when you were younger? Me. And to others. I think that I can do everything that I used to do when I was 20, and I don't understand why can't I just go and do that? And it's not as easy. Or why is it harder once you hit a certain age to maintain a healthy weight? That's just not fair. Darn, our aging process. But so we can't compare ourselves to when we were younger. We have to be here in the moment with who we are now. And that will help us move on, because if we sit there and think about what it used to be like, it's not going to allow us. That doesn't help anything. That just makes us angry that we can't do what we used to do. And is your perspective on your health preventing you from moving forward and taking action? So again, are you stuck in this, well, I used to be able to do this and I can't now, so now I'm just not going to try? Or are you saying, here's my boundaries now, and what can I do now so that I can achieve what I feel is healthy? So thinking about your perspective can be a big help towards achieving your goals. So change your perspective and change your health. Changing what we tell ourselves can change our perspective on our health. So rather than saying, well, I used to be healthy, maybe we rephrase that to say, I can still be healthy, and here's what I need to do. Here's what I can control. Here's my small steps. Our perspective is our reality, and we can choose to change our perspective from negative to positive. So our reality might be that, yep, I have high cholesterol. I'm be on medication for the rest of my life, and that's it. Or our perspective can change to, well, maybe if I started making some small changes that I can control my cholesterol, and maybe I wouldn't have to take medication or as much medication. So thinking about things more positively rather than just negatively might help us make some progress towards improving our health and the health of our heart. Once we choose to change our perspective and believe we're in control of our health and our health is a priority, we begin to see results. So once you decide, I can do this, and I'm going to be intentional about this, and I'm going to make my health a priority, that's when we start to see results. When we get rid of those negative thoughts and things that don't serve us well. We can change our view of ourselves from healthy versus unhealthy if we change what we tell ourselves. So we might not be as healthy as we want to be today, but there's something about you that has to be serving you well, that is healthy, or that is serving your emotional health. You have to think about that and hold on to that, and then add more to it. Okay. All right. Thinking about change. Now, this is where you have to really be honest with yourself. And it's not really for anybody else to answer. So this is where you sit with yourself and really think, are you ready to take responsibility? You are the only one that can fix what you are doing that might not be serving you well. You are the only one that can choose to make yourself a priority. And you are the only one that knows what really is going to bring you joy. So you should be ready to answer these. What in your life is not serving you well? And that's sometimes hard to pick out, both because sometimes we don't want to always address it, and sometimes maybe we don't always know. But I'm going to give you a little tool later for that. What brings you joy? So a good exercise to go through is to think about what's your perfect day look like. And a lot of times I ask people this, and it's surprising to me that people are like, oh, I don't know. Where I can answer that like right off the top of my head down to like what day of the week it is, where I am, what the temperature is, and who I'm with, and what I'm going to do from hour to hour. So I definitely know what brings me joy. So spend some time with that because that's kind of a fun activity, A. And once you figure out what brings you joy, you can start to incorporate that into not only the healthy habits you're trying to change, but bringing more joy in your life helps to boost that emotional well-being, which we know then supports those changes around physical well-being. And is your current state reflective of your values? So what you're doing now day to day, does that align with your values? And if not, what do you need to change? Because when there's that inconsistency, as I mentioned before, between our values and what we do each day, there's an inconsistency in our sense of purpose, and that causes us stress unconsciously. And then what is your perspective about change? Is change good? Is it bad? Or is it really ugly? And how can we change that idea of change being okay? And finally, what's likely to happen if you don't make a change? So there was a quote one time that you can either focus on your being active now, or you can focus on being sick later. So what's going to happen if you don't make that change? So what we fear of doing most is usually what most needs to be done. And I like that quote because that's true. What we ruminate or what causes us anxiety is usually something that we are fearful of because we don't know how we're going to get through it or how we're going to do it. And so we just kind of push it off when it's really something we probably need to bring closer and start to examine. So why do we do what we do? Or how do we find out what's not serving us well? So this is a tool that I call the 5 whys. I stole it from, it's actually a lean work process method that we have used here at TMC, that we've used for processes around patient care or any of our work, but we can also use it for unhealthy habits or figuring out what it is that we need to do different. So thinking about an unhealthy habit that you'd like to change. And so I gave an example. I ate a pre-meal while making dinner. I do this all the time. Like, this is ridiculous why I do this. So I'll be cooking dinner and I'll be snacking the whole way through so that by the time dinner's ready, I've already had a meal. So why I think I need to cook dinner, it's beyond me. Okay. So this is very effective at figuring out why, but now you need to take the next step in making changes. So I own that. But so ask the question, so why do I eat a pre-meal? Okay, so why do I do it? Well, because I'm hungry when I'm cooking. So when you guys are making dinner or you're making a meal, are you hungry? Okay, so why are you hungry? So my answer to that, my next why is, why am I so hungry when I get home to cook dinner? Well, it's because I skipped lunch. Okay, well, why did you skip lunch? You know lunch is important. Well, I had too much work to do, so I just kind of kept working and I lost track of time. Okay, well, why did you have so much extra work to do? Well, because I came in kind of late. Okay, well, why did you get in so late? Well, because I overslept because I was tired. Well, why did you oversleep? Well, because I went to bed so late because there was a really good movie on. And you could go on and on. Well, why did you feel the need to stay up so late? Well, probably because I was stressed from the day and I didn't take care of my stress in a healthy way. So I stayed up too late. So you could keep going down this pattern, as you can see. So I guess what I ultimately want you to understand with the 5 whys is your first initial response to why do you do something probably isn't always the ultimate answer. So I challenge you to dig a little deeper and ask yourself, why? Well, why do I do that? Well, why is that? And keep digging, because then maybe you're going to get to the real problem. And once we solve that, then that takes care of a whole other mess of things. And it makes it easier to pick the right kind of goal to help us achieve changes over a long time. So think about that. All right. And then think about the healthy me. What's your vision of health? So what does healthy really mean to you? What am I telling myself that's keeping me from improving my health? So this is another one of those really kind of difficult questions that we have to really be honest with ourselves if we really, really want to make healthy changes. And so a lot of times I talk with people about nutrition and they haven't really had this conversation with themselves. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes there's tears, and sometimes there's a lot of just resistance around it, because sometimes this is pretty personal about what are you holding on to that's keeping you from being healthy? In some cases, maybe it's something from way back in your childhood that you still haven't addressed, but what is it that you're telling yourself that's keeping you from being healthy? And what am I doing now that's not serving me well? And maybe that's kind of doing a journal entry every day and kind of taking a peek at what you're doing. Or even asking a really close friend, well, hey, what do you think that I'm doing that's not so healthy? Because maybe we're so used to it that we don't even recognize it anymore. And what am I doing now that is not serving me well? So what makes you feel ick at the end of the day, but you still do it? What do you have control over, and what can you change? So are there things that we're doing that we have to do that we can't control? Okay, we need to let that go. That we just have to because it's something we need to do. And what are the things that we can actually change? So if there's something we can actually change, then what's that small step we're going to take towards making that change? Then, and maybe you want to do this first up there under your definition of what health really means, is what could I do if I were healthier? How will my life be improved? That's probably one of the most important questions you can ask yourself after you've defined what healthy means, is because if you start to get to your why. So I had one gentleman tell me he wanted to be part of a program to lose weight because his friends were doing it. And I said, well, that's not a good enough reason for me. So unless you have a different reason, you can't be part of this program, because that was not going to have any long-term impact on him. So he thought about it, and he came back the next week, and he came back with the answer that he needed to lose weight because he realized his joints were being affected, and he wasn't going to be able to get down and play with his grandkids pretty soon because he wasn't going to have that mobility. And that is more of what I was looking for around what could I do if I were healthier. So you internalize that and think, is there things that aren't healthy about me? And what could I do different, or that I would enjoy doing more if I were healthy? Because then that becomes your why. And then you can start to answer all of these other questions. And then what will happen if I do improve my health? So how great is that going to be? All right. And that's the end of that presentation.
So Mary, I think it's great that you, I love the story that you just shared about the gentleman and how he was sort of finding his own why, and why it became important for him to, reach his goal.
Yeah.
And have, I guess that sharing that the 5 whys along with the simple 7 as well for everybody, who may be concerned about their heart health in general, about those controllable factors, but then those 5 whys on why are you doing this?
Yeah. Why do we stop at, those fast food places when we're out and about? Why do we really do that versus bringing a meal with us when we know that would be much more heart healthy for us? So really kind of digging into those.
So great, wonderful changes that people can make that are simple, and really just digs into what matters to them. So thank you so much for sharing during Heart Month with us. I really appreciate it. We have pre-recorded this session today, so if you have any questions for Mary, please leave them in the comments, and we will continue to monitor those as well. So thank you all for being here.